Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight, coming to you live from Austin, Texas, where many of you know I relocated a number of weeks ago, a couple weeks ago. Still coming out of boxes here, but things are coming together, and I'm actually calling you or having this webinar with you from within the shipping room at Marty Ross MD Supplements. So still trying to figure out what room I'm going to wind up hosting these webinars in, but this is where I had a working computer tonight to be able to talk with you. So those of you that are new here, I'm glad to see some new faces and names at least, and I see some familiar names that have signed up as well tonight too. So to those who've been here before, welcome back, and to those of you that are new, I'm glad to see some new faces here. The way these webinars work, you create them every week with your questions. And so every webinar is a little bit different. Somehow, without any planning, we get into themes some nights, and often we don't. So we'll see where tonight's webinar goes. During the webinar tonight, I will be doing some screen shares with you so you can see some of the free resources I have available at Treat Lyme, which is my Lyme disease information site. Also probably show you copies of my new book, Anti-Germ Action Plans for Lyme Disease, which is a written version of my plans to actually get rid of the various infections that you see in Lyme disease too. I'll share that with you tonight as well. I also will likely share with you where you can find high quality supplements and ideas that you might want to look for, whether you buy them from Marty Ross MD supplements or whether you get them elsewhere. I'll show you the various brands that I use that I have found to be effective products. And when you choose supplements, you have to be careful. There's a lot of garbage out there, frankly. There have been independent studies that have gone in and looked to see, and most of them show that probably what's in a lot of the shelves, like at GNC and Target and places like that, what they advertise as being in those supplements often is not. And so what I've tried to do at Marty Ross MD Supplements is to try to find products that have a good track record of putting in what they say they put in, and also of providing very high quality active ingredients in those supplements as well too. So I'll show that to you later on as well too. The way you participate is you can listen, but you can also write questions. And so you write those questions to me down here on the bottom, over in that chat box down on the bottom. As you're writing the question, I ask that you only hit the enter key one time. If you hit the enter key more than one time, it presents multiple questions to me, and it gets very hard to track. During the webinar, we will be posting those questions on your screen so that everyone can see them, but I will also read them. And the reason that I will wind up reading them to you is that in the recorded version, that the written questions don't show up. And so for people that are watching the recordings, I want them to be able to understand what we're talking about as well too. All right. I am creating a webinar recording. You will get an email from me tomorrow morning when that is ready. I anticipate that will probably be ready by no later than 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Sometimes I get a little bit behind in getting that done, but generally I keep to the plan that I have on that. Okay. And so I think that covers the business end of things. Why don't we go ahead and get started here? We'll take our first question here. If I can get to that first question. All right. Question from Justin. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. I have mold illness, Lyme. I tested positive fish test for Bartonella, negative for Babesia. Very fatigued, heart palpitations have subsided, deja vu, anxiety, dizziness, medicated by cholestyramine charcoal pills well over a year, still on tinidazole 2 months, Ceftin 3 months, then azithromycin 2 months, rifampin 3 months, Biocide 11 months, lipozymal glutathione 7 months, low-dose naltrexone 8 months, EDTA nasal spray 6 months, still on all of these. Stopped all antibiotics for 7 months, began your Babesia treatment of it looks like Malarone and Zithromax a month ago, no real improvement. Added Bactrim single dose after 2 doses, horrible reaction, nausea, head, and vice feeling, could not continue. Is that severe herxing? I have herx before. It was not anything like this. On many vitamins and probiotics to help. I feel slightly better than a year ago, but hardly well. What can I do? What can I add to the atovaquone proquinel, which is Malarone, everyone, zithromycin mix in place of Bactrim, Can I be on any of these too long? Thank you so much. I need some help here. All right, Justin, I'm going to try to answer a few things. I'm not going to be able to give you a comprehensive answer because I'd have a lot of questions, but I'll try to answer a few things. Number one, the Bactrim should not have given that kind of a reaction. And so the nausea part can be a side effect of Bactrim, okay? The head in a vice feeling is nothing that I would describe as being a Herxheimer reaction, and therefore I have to think it was some kind of an abnormal side effect reaction to the Bactrim too. I don't consider what happened on you on the Bactrim to actually be a Herxheimer reaction, okay? In terms of what else could you add to the atovaquone proquenel, so AP, everyone that Justin's referring to here is atovaquone proquenel. It is one of the treatments that you can do for Lyme. Sometimes you can use it alone, although usually I like to combine it with another intracellular antibiotic like azithromycin, azithromax here. Another option could be to combine it with clarithromycin. Another option could be to combine it with the tetracyclines, okay? But this is a nice combination that you're on. Often when you are on a Babesia treatment, if it is the correct treatment, it can take 1 to 2 months before you start seeing improvements, okay? And it sounds like you have been on this for a month ago, so it's not too surprising if you have Babesia that you might not have seen major changes yet, okay? What else could you add? That was your question. So if you wanted to add another agent to this mix, one thing you could do would be to add a tetracycline. That can complement what you're doing with the amilorone and the zithromax. Okay, that's one option. But actually, my preferred option would be to consider adding the herbal medicine called Cryptolepis. Cryptolepis is an herb that comes to us out of Ghana, Africa, where they used it in the past successfully to treat malaria, actually. Can work quite well. And so a number of years ago, many of us that treat Lyme started incorporating it into our Lyme treatments. And that is because with Babesia we recognize as a blood parasite. Malaria is a blood parasite. And so things that we use for malaria tend to work for Babesia as well, too. And probably what I have done before in my practice in situations like this would be, number one, wait a little longer. I think it's just going to take time. But if you do want to add something, what I have added in the past in my practice successfully is to add the Cryptolepis, and I would do it as a 5 milliliters 3 times a day. That's to get pure Cryptolepis, not Cryptolepis found in a combination product like Research Nutritionals has something called Crypto Plus. But if you're, my preference is pure Cryptolepis. On my own store, I sell a product made by Woodland or by Wildcraft Herbs called Cryptolepis. And of that product, I would dose it as 5 milliliters 3 times a day. Okay. So in terms of the symptoms that you told me that make me wonder a bit about Babesia, and I would need to ask you more questions. The anxiety sometimes can be part of that, although that can be part of Bartonella too. The big thing that kind of has me wondering about it, though, is the deja vu. Deja vu is a very interesting symptom that is often associated with Babesia. Other symptoms that make me think of Babesia in people in general are either night sweats, severe panic attack anxiety, air hunger sometimes can be part of that. Air hunger can also occur in Bartonella, though, as well, too. Headaches in the front of the head, and then having deja vu. The other thing that can sometimes happen with Babesia is people get these little red cherry spots under the skin. They look like little blood blisters under the skin. That can be part of Babesia. And extreme fatigue can be part of Babesia too. From what you've said here, I cannot tell for sure whether you have Babesia or not. I would need to ask you a lot of questions, of which, unfortunately, I'm just not able to do that in this kind of a format, okay? But to answer your 2 of your questions here, number 1, I think you had a side effect reaction to the Bactrim. And then number 2, I think if you were to want to strengthen what you're using for Babesia, one way I have strengthened this kind of a treatment in the past, successfully in my practice, is to add Cryptolepis, 5 milliliters 3 times a day, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Justin. Thank you for that question, too. All right. I'm going to do a quick screen share here, everyone. I think I'm going to do a screen share. Hold on here just a minute. Oh, I have to create a screen to share. I didn't get things set up here adequately. Hold on here just a minute. All right, here we go. All right, so trying to show you, this is Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. This is my Lyme disease information site, okay? So if you're looking for options to treat Babesia, everyone, take a look in my chapter called Infection Treatment Plans. There is an article in here called Kills Babesia, Brief Guide, where I review various ways that you can treat Babesia, okay? If you're looking for a product that has all of my how do you kill germ action plans for Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, Anaplasma, Ehrlichia, Candida, parasites, viruses, and also for persister Lyme using something called Dapsone, you could, as an alternative to actually reading the articles here online, you could buy my new book called Anti-Germ Action Plans for Lyme Disease. So that gives you a printed version of all of the action plans that I have written at Treat Lyme. And this is a cleaned up version. It's been edited and reads a little cleaner than some of the articles I have here at Treat Lyme. But that's another resource for you to look at too. All right, let me go back here. All right, Justin, thank you for that question. Good luck to you. Hello, Fiona. Let's see here. Good evening, Dr. Ross. Could you please comment on the effectiveness of IV vitamin C 20 grams 2 times weekly? How does it work? Is there any evidence to support use? Just received. Let me answer that one first, and we'll talk about your Armin lab results. So high dose vitamin C generally is going to be more in, well, let me straight back. Vitamin C can both be an antioxidant and it can be an oxidizing agent. It all depends on how you use it, okay? So at low doses, probably under about 10,000 to 20,000 grams, it's tending to be an antioxidant, okay? When you start getting more to doses of about 30 to 50 grams, so a little higher than what they're using with you here, it winds up becoming an oxidizing agent, okay? Now, oxidizing agents work by damaging fat membranes that make up our cells, actually, and the germ covering, which is a double layer fat membrane. And oxidizing agents can damage genetic material as well, too. Okay, now, we supposedly are protected. Our own cell systems are protected because we make antioxidants. Germs, when they're exposed to oxidizing agents, on the other hand, don't have any protection because they don't make antioxidants, okay? So one of the things, though, that I am concerned about, I know a lot of people are trying to find ways to treat Lyme that don't use antibiotics or use herbal antibiotics, and they are starting to try more and more oxidizing agents. And oxidizing agents would be things like ozone, hydrogen peroxide, and even high-dose vitamin C, although usually I'd go a little bit higher if I were to do that. It's recommended to do it higher than what they're doing with you, okay? Now, in reality, no one has done any studies to say, does oxidizing medicine work on Lyme disease? There are some people that have strong opinions that it does, but there has been no studies done, even limited small studies that I'm aware of that shows that it works, all right? In my practice, when I was practicing up in Seattle, Washington, I had a number of people that would try oxidizing agents, either IV hydrogen peroxide, or they would try it. Not that I recommended it or that I did in my office, but they had tried these things like IV hydrogen peroxide. Yes, IV hydrogen peroxide, or IV ozone, rectal ozone, high-dose vitamin C, like they're thinking you've been doing here, although usually a little bit higher dose. And to be honest with you, I was disappointed in the ongoing results. They may have had some short-term limited results, but not good ongoing results. The other concern I have with oxidizing agents when people do them regularly is the concern of damage. There have been no studies done about repeated use of antioxidants or of oxidizing agents and whether our own antioxidants are sufficient to overcome the damaging aspects of these as well, too. And so for that reason, I am not a big fan of oxidizing agents. Now, I know there's some people that are out there, but I think they're seeing limited benefits, short-term benefits. And I just don't think that we have good ideas that it works long-term. And also in my own clinical experience, I did not find oxidizing agents to work that well long-term to help get somebody well. Okay. All right, so I think that answers part of your question there. Let's see, the second part of this. Just received the Armin Ellispot Borrelia results currently at 5 out of 5. Also on minocycline, grapefruit seed extract, lime kill tincture, DMSA, cod liver oil, glutathione, chlorophyll. As always, thank you for your time. Oh, okay, I think you were just telling me that what you're doing here, actually, okay? So the Ellispot that she had done, everyone, Ellispot is one of the many ways that you can test for Lyme. There are other ways, like a Western blot. IGeneX recently developed some modified Western blot called an immunoblot that is a cleaned up version of the Western blot. I guess I'll call it that. If you look at probably the strongest way to test for Lyme these days to see if you have had Lyme, I'm finding in my own experience that the new immunoblot from IGeneX tends to be the better test. They have in-house studies that show that it works about 91% of the time to correctly identify Lyme when it's there. Their Western blot, which is probably one of the best Western blot methods out there, will find Lyme if it's there about 80% of the time. That's based on their own internal validation studies. The Ellispot test has some studies, limited studies, that shows that it could identify Lyme correctly when it's present about 85% of the time. Now, so let me talk about the differences here. So immunoblots and Western blots basically are checking to see, is your immune system making antibodies that attach to the germ? They both are ways of measuring, do you make antibodies that attach to proteins found on the Lyme germ? Okay, so that's one way of seeing, is your immune system reacting? Another way to see if your immune system has reacted against Lyme is the Ellispot test. And what the Ellispot test does is it looks to see, has your white blood cells, a group of white blood cells called T cells, ever seen Lyme before? Have they attacked it before? Okay. And the way that test is done basically is we take T cells from your blood, we expose them to Lyme proteins in the laboratory in a test tube, and then we see, do they make cytokines? And if they make inflammatory chemicals called cytokines, it means they've seen Lyme before. All right. Now, T cells have a life in the blood of about 2 months. All right. And so some of my and that means that there's a memory of Lyme in you through most T cells of about 2 months. So if we were to measure an Ellispot and Lyme has been in you sometime over the last 2 months, it should pick it up. All right. Because T cells only live in you for up to about 2 months, many of my colleagues now are starting to do Ellispot testing to see, is Lyme gone? And what they're saying is that if there are no T cells that the Ellispot picks up that shows that Lyme is active, then they're taking that as some proof that Lyme is gone. All right. Now, I don't think that's an accurate thing to do. And there's a number of reasons why. Number one, Lyme can hide. Lyme can live in tissues that don't have good blood flow, and therefore the T cells could not see it. Okay. All right. That's the biggest reason. And so therefore, there actually is not a Lyme done test. There is actually not a where are we in Lyme test. The immunoblots won't show it. The Western blots won't show it. And this, although many of my colleagues are starting to use this Ellispot as a means of seeing if Lyme is gone, they're ignoring the fact that Lyme hides. And so it's possible that the T cells aren't seeing it because Lyme is hiding, and therefore you get a test that's negative. I am of the school of thought that if you've had Lyme in you for a year or more, there's a good chance you're never getting rid of the germs. The best you're doing with antibiotics and immune support and detoxing is working to get the immune system to the point that it can put the germ under control. Okay. So once you have come up with a positive Lyme test, there's a good chance that it may always remain positive because the germ is not going to probably get out of you if it's been in you for a year or more. But secondly, even if those tests come back negative, it just may mean Lyme is hiding, and therefore the immune system isn't seeing it. Okay. So we really do not have a where are you test. And although I know a number of my colleagues are doing that, I just strongly disagree that they're trying to do that kind of a testing to see that Lyme is gone. I just disagree that we have a test that shows where are you, basically. All right. All right. Good luck to you, Fiona. Thank you for that question tonight. Hello, Oscar. Let's see, Dr. Ross. I'm on Mepron, doxycycline, Biax, and grapefruit seed extract. Is it okay to stop these and take Bactrim the following 3 days after a UTI, then restart the Lyme medication after? All right. So it is okay to interrupt a Lyme germ treatment when you're in the middle of Lyme, okay? However, it is not okay to interrupt a Babesia treatment or a Bartonella treatment. All right, let me talk about those points. So the Lyme germ, Borrelia Lyme, is a very slow-growing germ, and by some estimates, it replicates maybe every 4 weeks or so. Okay, and because of that, and because it grows so slowly, you can stop antibiotics periodically and not suffer any harm. The germ is not going to suddenly grow quickly and overwhelm your body. Okay, all right. On the other hand, Bartonella, for instance, replicates every 24 hours. All right. So in those days you're off antibiotics, guess what's coming back really fast? Babesia is similar to that. Babesia will come back quickly in the days that you're off too. So what I would suggest, if you want to take a break from some of those antibiotics, I would not stop your Mepron. Your doxine, the Biaxin, could be part of a Babesia treatment along with that Mepron, or they're being used for your Lyme along with the grapefruit seed extract. Okay, so I get what they're doing there. But I think that for a few days, if you want to cut back on the antibiotics, using the Mepron along with Bactrim, believe it or not, Bactrim can help with Babesia too, is an adequate thing to do. I would not stop that one. I think you'd be okay to stop your other ones, though. And that's, again, all that I'm sharing with you here, everyone, is based on my experience and clinical expertise from treating Lyme. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Thanks for that question. Hello, David. Say hi, Dr. Ross. What's the difference between core biotics and Prescript Assist? What do you prefer? So it's so first of all, a Prescript Assist Pro or Prescript Assist, and it's sold by one way that. So let me start over again. Both core biotics and Prescript Assist are forms of spore-forming probiotics. These are bacteria that out of our intestines will turn into a spore, which kind of is a protective form of the bacteria. These spore formers are not ordinarily found within our intestinal tracts. Rather, they come from the soil, actually. They come from the ground, okay? Core biotics and Prescript Assist are both two different forms of spore-forming probiotics, all right? Prescript Assist is manufactured by a company who then sells it to other companies that turn it into something under their brand. So for instance, Prescript Assist has been turned in by Research Nutritionals, one of the supplement companies. Their version of Prescript Assist is called Prescript Assist Pro, okay? All right. So one of the things that is happening, I believe after the first of the year, Research Nutritionals is discontinuing their version of Prescript Assist. They're not going to do it anymore, okay? And one of the reasons is that the core biotic, although it's got slightly different spore-forming bacteria in it than Prescript Assist, generally they work and do the same thing, okay? But core biotics is a lot less expensive, all right? And so therefore, what I've tended to use in my practice is the core biotics. I find it works quite well. And the way that these spore formers work is actually they probably are not providing long-term population to your intestines, but rather they help create an environment so that the existing good bacteria that live in your intestines have a better chance of working and maintaining a foothold even when they're exposed to antibiotics, okay? Sometimes if people are having a lot of problems with yeast, I'll have them do a spore former like the core biotic or the Prescript Assist, coupled with a regular probiotic product made up of regular bacteria that lives in our intestines. And those would be things like Lactobacillus acidophilus. There's the acidophilus, okay. Lactobacillus bifidus, bifidobacterium. Those are kinds of bacteria that you'll find in regular probiotics that are helped by having spore formers around. They help them gain and maintain a better foothold within the intestinal tract. So sometimes I'll do that, okay? How do I use them? Core biotics, I usually have people take 2 pills 1 time a day. Prescript Assist, 2 pills 1 time a day. And then if I'm going to combine it with a regular probiotic, I'll usually use something called HMF Forte. It's a product made by Genestra. and it's got bifidobacterium and also lactobacillus acidophilus, lactobacillus. I just blanked there. It's one of those 56-year-old moments, but the various strains of lactobacillus in there. Okay. And I usually have people do 2 pills 1 time a day of that as well too. All right. So again, after the first of the year, I believe it's after the first of the year, Research Nutritionals is no longer going to be manufacturing their Prescript Assist anymore. And that's because they also think that the core biotics is working just as well. All right. Thanks for that question, David. Hello, L. Let's see. Hello. A style of sorts recently, or a sty of sorts recently developed in one eyelid. It looks like a pimple inside the eyelid. Is this a common occurrence in Lyme and co-infections? No, so to answer that part of your question, L, no, I would not call it a common occurrence. It's probably, one thing we have to keep in mind is that you've got to be careful. When I was seeing patients up in Seattle, I had to be careful not to put my Lyme blinders on and see everything as Lyme disease. Okay. And what I mean by that is it's very possible that you get common things that happen in anyone, all right, even whether you have Lyme or don't have Lyme. So styes can happen in anyone, and I have not seen them occur with increased frequency in somebody with Lyme disease before, okay? All right, let's see. Is this a common occurrence in Lyme and co-infection? No, let's see. What is the best way to treat it? So with a sty, generally what you want to do is you want to put heat on. So like a hot towel, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You can do that 3 or 4 times a day. That'll often help break that up and help get it out. Sometimes also styes will sometimes form because you actually have blocked tear ducts or glands along the eyelid. And the way you can help break up some of that blockage is to get a mixture of Johnson's baby shampoo so you don't tear when you use this stuff. And you dilute it in with 1/2 water and 1/2 of the Johnson's baby shampoo. And you use a little cotton ball, and about once or twice a day, you just use it to rub up against the eyelid. That's going to help open up some of the pores, break up the oil that's blocking some of those pores so that they open up, and that some help get that infection out or prevent the infection from happening too. Okay. So that sometimes is what you can do, but heat and probably 3 or 4 times a day, 5 to 10 minutes, using a hot towel. You can do it with that. That'll help draw it out. And then help open up some of those pores by doing the Johnson's baby shampoo that I was just telling you about, okay? So let's see. Instead of getting olive leaf extract capsules for viruses, can I just use organic olive leaf powder, which is sold in bulk from herbal companies? Is there a difference between the extract and the powder? You could go either way. So no, I mean, the extract and the powder will have active chemicals in them that actually help kill viruses. I am not quite sure what to tell you about the dosing, though. I don't know how potent the powder is that you're talking about using versus an extract. Okay, I just don't know what the product is that you're using. But no, in theory, you could use either one. They should work just fine. All right. Good luck to you. Thanks for that question. Hello, Lee. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for doing these webinars. You're welcome. See, my son just started complaining of burning pain on the bottom of his feet. He says it feels like they are on fire. He has Lyme and Bartonella and Babesia, but never had the symptom before starting treatment with antibiotics. Lee, let me just make sure there's not a second part to your question, but I will make some comments about what you put there already. Oh, there we are. There's a second part to your question. Is it part of the herx or new symptom things? Okay, so let me go back to your original question here, repost that. Okay, so burning pain usually is a sign of nerve injury. Okay, it's nerve pain, and nerves, when they get injured, sometimes will be numb. Sometimes they'll give you this kind of pain. Of the infections that your son has, both Lyme and Bartonella can sometimes cause the nerve injury. Okay. The other thing to be careful, it depends on which medications your son is using as well too. Sometimes if your physicians are using either tinidazole or metronidazole, which are antibiotics we can use to kill the cyst form of the Lyme germ, Remember, Lyme lives in you in three forms, or three different states. There's something called spirochete, which looks like a corkscrew. There's a microscopic cyst form, and then there's a form of Lyme that lives inside and outside of cells. Okay, so the inside the cells, we got to be able to get at that too. Tinidazole and metronidazole get at intracellular Lyme, and they also have the ability to treat cyst Lyme. But both of those sometimes can lead to neuropathy too. Usually it's due to the fact that both of them interfere with vitamin B6 metabolism, okay? So sometimes what you can do if you are running into a neuropathy and you're on a tinidazole and a metronidazole is get on B6 about 50 milligrams one time a day. That's one way to look at handling some of the neuropathy, but they already may need to stop it. The other things that can be done to help support those nerves, since they are burning, is to help treat and heal them. Okay, so heal the injury that has occurred to them. One is kill the germs that are injuring them. Okay, but second thing you can do is to work with glutathione. Glutathione is an extremely powerful antioxidant that is made in every one of our cells. Glutathione is the master detox chemical used by the liver to detox. It's also made in every cell to repair damage. All right, so every one of our cells produces lots of glutathione to repair damage. And so when you got damage, sometimes with like nerves being injured, sometimes they will exhaust their glutathione gas tank. So if you take more glutathione, sometimes that can help with nerve repair. The way I like to use glutathione in situations like this that I have found helpful in the past is to use liposomal glutathione. That means glutathione that's microscopically wrapped in fat. And one company that makes a version of that is Research Nutritionals. Their liposomal glutathione product is something called Trifortify. They've got good studies that show that wrapping it in, microscopically wrapping it in fat, actually increases the quantity of glutathione that shows up in red blood cells, therefore probably in all cells, okay? And you would want to do 5 milliliters one time a day of that. That's one way to help with some of that nerve injury. If that nerve injury continues in another month or two, then you might also want to start doing some repair of the nerve cell membranes. And I found in my practice that can be helpful to repair nerve cell membranes is to use a product called NT Factor, also made by Research Nutritionals. It's made up of the fats that make up the nerve cell membrane, and it's encapsulated way to get absorbed. It also helps repair the energy factories found in every one of our cells called mitochondria. They also are made up of similar fats. And the way you can use that is the NT Factor would be to take 2 pills of it 3 times a day for 2 months. And then after 2 months, you would decrease it down to 1 pill 3 times a day. That seems to be a way that's effective at helping repair mitochondria and repairing nerve cell membranes. And again, the nerve cell membrane repair, no one's done research on that aspect. That is something I found helpful in my practice. And when I was treating patients, I found it helpful as a means of repairing nerve injury as well too. All right. But I probably wouldn't go with the NT Factor yet. I would add in the glutathione. And I would review with your physician which medications your son is on to see if any of them might be causing nerve injury as well too, of which pay attention to whether it's metronidazole or tinidazole your son might be on as well too. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Lee, and good luck to your son. Thanks for that question. Hello, PLC. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for your integrity, empathy, and dedication. You're welcome. Thank you. We need you. I'm sorry for the way you are being treated. Hope Austin will be okay. I am enjoying Austin. There's something here in Austin that we don't have in Seattle. It's called sunshine this time of year. Although I got to admit, the last few days we've been in the 30s and had rain here in Seattle. And I felt like I had never left Seattle at all. So I mean, here in Austin we had that weather, and it made me feel like I hadn't left Seattle at all. But the sun came back out today, which is good. Let's see. Can you share any thoughts on Lyme, co-infections, and psychosis? I developed one in the spring without any history of mental illness. I'm 51. Scary. Been out of it for more than 4 months, and doctor is taking me off medication. But clearly lots of inflammation in brain and nervous system. Hi from Denmark. Hello. I wonder if you're actually up this time. This is very late in the evening for you if you're just going to be listening to this on the recorded version after having posted your question. But I'm glad to see that you're able to attend from there too. So listen, in terms of psychoses, things that are known to give mental health problems in Lyme are Lyme, the Lyme infection, that is, the Lyme Borrelia infection, also Bartonella. When you've got somebody that has a lot of psychiatric symptoms as part of Lyme, Bartonella often is at play. And even though, and keep in mind, Bartonella testing is not that good. We have 30 different strains of Bartonella, an estimated 30 different strains. 17 of those are thought to infect humans, and most labs can test for maybe 1 or 2 different strains. So it's possible to have Bartonella and not have positive testing on it, okay? In my practice, what I used to do would be to treat both Bartonella and Lyme in somebody that would have major psychiatric symptoms as part of it, okay? The other thing that I would pay attention to is to see, did one of my medications cause it? Okay, because some of these medications we use as side effects can lead to mental health conditions. So for instance, the atovaquone that is found in Malarone and Mepron sometimes can lead to psychiatric issues. I have also seen minocycline that I like using, which is a tetracycline that I will use as part of my Lyme germ treatment, sometimes part of Bartonella, sometimes part of Babesia treatments. And the reason I like using it in Bartonella and in Lyme is that it's fat soluble. That means it gets into the brain. Okay, things that are fat soluble cross what's known as the blood-brain barrier to get into the brain. The brain is set up to keep toxins out, so it has this fatty layer that basically protects it. It's called the blood-brain barrier. And minocycline, because it's so fat soluble, can get through that. But one of the things that I've had to watch in the past with minocycline is to make sure that it was not leading to psychiatric issues, because rarely it can. And so I would make sure your doctor takes a look at your medications, sounds like it, to see if there's anything medication-wise that might have triggered some of this psychosis as well, too. All right? All right. Good luck to you, Pia. If you're looking for ideas about how to treat Bartonella, take a look at my book, Anti-Germ Action Plans. I showed that earlier tonight. Or you can find my individual article on how to treat Bartonella at my website, the treatlyme.net website, under the Infection Treatment Plans chapter. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Laura C. I have a question about how to know which co-infection to treat based on symptoms of severe itching. I thought it had it under control. Then I went to an oxygen tank the next day, had a horrible flare-up, intense itching that was more like nerves prickling. This was nearly a year ago. I've treated with some herbs, calmed it down. Not sure which co-infection to treat for. Thanks so much. All right. So itchy skin, I'll just say a few things about itchy skin, okay? So itchy skin often can be dry skin. Okay, so first of all, make sure the first thing to do when somebody's got a lot of itching of their skin that I did in practice is to make sure they don't have dry skin. If you've got dry skin, moisturizing can make a world of difference with itchy skin. Okay, that's kind of a starting point for itchiness. The second thing to do with itchiness is you got to make sure you don't have an organ dysfunction problem. So for instance, if you have some forms of liver dysfunction where you start developing increased levels of a chemical that's supposed to be cleaned out by the liver called bilirubin, that can give you itching too. So if you've got somebody that's got a lot of itching, I also like to do some baseline blood testing of looking at blood counts. I also like to look at a chemistry profile to see how the kidney and liver are doing as well too. Okay. All right, so make sure that those things were done, all right? But if all those are normal, then the other thing I would consider, if you're looking at what germs in Lyme can do that, there is a condition which is known as neurodermatitis, which means itchy skin from the nerves being injured. And it can give you that kind of prickling feeling like you described here. And so what can give neurodermatitis would either be Bartonella or Lyme. All right, so you'd want to review symptoms to see if it could be part of Bartonella. Let me just show you an article that you can look at to see that. All right, so this is back at Treat Lyme. In the How to Diagnose section of my online guide here, there is an article called "It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia: The Symptoms and Signs." Take a look at this one. I go through the list of what symptoms suggest Bartonella. And if you have a significant number of those, I would probably treat for Bartonella too. Okay? All right. Thanks for that question. Let's see. I think that takes care of that. Good luck to you, Lori. Hello, Fiona. Good evening, Dr. Ross. Good evening. Could you please? Oh, we already talked about that one earlier. It looks like that was a posted twice, everyone, just so you know. Hello, Michelle. Hello. I was diagnosed with Lyme 2 years ago. Was treated with Doxy. The flu-like symptoms went away, but the aches and pains never did. About a year ago, my whole left side went numb from my face down to my toes. I'm having some numbness on the right side now, too. I also have a lot of muscle weakness, daily headaches, dizziness, brain fog, nausea. I've had every test you can think of to try and figure out why. I recently started seeing a new Lyme doctor who is saying my neuropathy could very well be from my Lyme and is treating me with the antibiotic Ceftin. I've only been taking it a month, and I go back in a month to see him. If no improvement, he wants to start IV antibiotics. Is he on the right track? Are my symptoms considered neurological Lyme? Anything else I can do to help with the neuropathy and other symptoms? All right. So a couple comments. So doxycycline can treat Lyme, okay? But doxycycline misses one form of the Lyme germ, and that is the microscopic cyst form of the germ. In an acute setting, which means if you got a tick bite and you know you got that tick bite and you start getting treated within about 3 to 4 weeks of that tick bite, doxycycline by itself will work effectively to eradicate, get rid of Lyme, completely get rid of it about 90% of the time, okay? And studies from the Infectious Disease Society of America, the doctors that don't believe in Lyme, even tell us that 10% of treatments that use doxycycline alone in an acute situation fail. All right. Now, I have no idea how long you were on that doxycycline or it was an acute situation or not. But even if it was, keep in mind it doesn't work 10% of the time. All right. And probably one of the reasons it doesn't work is that it probably misses the cyst form of the Lyme germ. All right. So Lyme exists in different states. All right. Number one, it's the spirochete. Looks like a corkscrew. All right. You've seen pictures of that on the internet. The other germ form that it lives is something called a microscopic cyst. That also is known as the L form. That's also called a round body. There's all kinds of ways that people describe it, but essentially they're all a microscopic cyst form of the germ. Okay. The other thing about Lyme is it lives outside of cells and can live inside of cells. All right. So when you design a treatment, you've got to use antibiotics that get inside and outside cells. All right. And you've got to design a treatment that treats at least the spirochete and the cyst form of the germs. All right. Your doxycycline would have treated intracellular and extracellular Lyme. It would have worked in both compartments, but it would have only treated the cyst form of Lyme, and it would not have gotten at the cyst form of the Lyme germ. All right. Your symptoms that you've listed here very much sound like active Lyme to me. And I am concerned your doctor using the Ceftin is only treating the spirochete. And Ceftin only works outside of cells. All right. So he's missing the inside the cell compartment, and he's not doing anything to treat the round body or the cyst form of the Lyme germ. So I think it's from what you've listed here, this does sound like Lyme to me. I'm not clear you need to go on IV antibiotics. I would think that another way to go is to make sure your doctor's treating all three forms of the germ. And you can do that using oral antibiotic regimens that tend to work about 85 to 90% of the time. IV antibiotic regimens work 90 to 95% of the time. You don't get that much added benefit by going to IV antibiotics, and you get a lot more risk of cost, okay? And those lines, IV lines that we sometimes use, get infected and give you infection in your bloodstream too. So there's risk in doing IV antibiotics, all right? In terms of looking at how do you treat all three forms inside the cells and outside, both forms of the Lyme germs and the intracellular and extracellular spaces, you want to take a look. I've given some sample treatment plans in my How to Kill Lyme Germs article. So take a look at infection treatment plans. Take a look at a Lyme disease antibiotic guide. And in here, I talk about what you need to combine, how you combine it, all right? And talk talk about how these various antibiotics work. So the antibiotic you're on, the ceftin, is in this family called cephalosporins, and the germs that it treats are spirochete, maybe cyst, but the science on that's a bit spotty. I would never use it alone to treat the cyst, but I will tell you, it doesn't get inside of cells, okay? So it works outside of cells, all right? So if you're looking for kind of ideas of comprehensive treatments, take a look here. I give part 3 of this article is Lyme disease antibiotic combination examples. And I give you a bunch of examples here of how you would combine antibiotics to treat these various places that Lyme lives and the various forms of the Lyme germ too, okay? You can find that here. The other place that you would find a version of this article is in my book, Anti-Germ Action Plans for Lyme Diseases, something you can even show your doctor so that you can talk through with him and say, hey, I want to be treated for all forms of my germ in and out of cells. And this is what Dr. Ross says. So you can bring this book in and show them. Okay? All right. All right. Good luck to you with that. Thanks for that question, Michelle. Let's see here. Hello, Lisa. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Marty. Do you plan on seeing patients again in Texas when able? Also, what do you think are the best herbals for Lyme? I have been fighting for 6 years and best treatment for resistant Babesia. Thank you. So as many of you know, I just recently moved here to Texas from Washington State. I left Washington State because my medical board has just been making it very difficult for me to treat Lyme in Washington State. I've been under investigation there for managing Lyme disease now for 4 years. And they recently upped the ante and about a year ago came at me again. And basically, I think there's a good chance that the way that they have been sounding based on a really negative personal meeting I had with them about a year ago, they pretty much have decided I think they want my license. They're just going through a process to do that now. I came here because when they do revoke my license up there, I would not be able to run my supplement store from up there, and they would not let me maintain a Lyme disease information site. They would call my Lyme information site a way of practicing medicine without a license. So I came down here because down here I can actually still do all those things. All right, so that's why I'm here. There is a point if I somehow get my license free and clear in Washington, and I'm still fighting it up there. But if I do get my license free and clear, it is possible that I might go for licensure down here eventually. But I'm not hopeful on that. The issue is if I do lose my license in some way up in Washington State, it's extremely difficult to get relicensed anywhere else. I know some other doctors have done that, but I just don't see it happening actually. So anyhow, to answer your question, probably not. Probably my way of helping people with Lyme disease is going to be to keep putting out information and educating people like I am here on this webinar, writing books, maintaining that Lyme disease information site, and supplying high quality supplements to help get people better. All right, that's my way of, at this point, that I can keep contributing based on all those years of experience that I have. Okay, all right. Let's see, what do you think are the best herbals for Lyme? So when it comes to treating Lyme, my favorite 2 herbs are to use a combination of cat's claw and Otoba bark extract. Now, both of those herbs are found in something called a Cowden protocol. There was some Petri dish experiments published about them probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. A researcher named Eva Choppy, that's SAPI, out of her lab in New Haven, Connecticut, did some Petri dish experiments to just look at, what herbs work best, what prescriptions work best. And although it's hard to sometimes say whether a Petri dish experiment actually gives you an idea what's going to happen in a human, they give you insights and they give you ideas of things to try. Okay, so her experiment showed that these 2 herbs together individually did a good job of killing spirochete and getting rid of round bodies and getting rid of biofilm slime layers that cover Lyme germs. Each individually did a good job, all right? But when you put the two together, there was just astronomical whopping kill. All right. And in fact, together, they got rid of almost 100% of biofilm communities as well, too. So biofilms, everyone, is a slime layer that Lyme grows to cover itself and protect itself from the immune system and to keep antibiotics out, basically. All right. So based on those studies, I started working with those two herbs. And in my clinical experience, what I found is that they work about 85 to 90% of the time, meaning those two herbs work have as good of a chance of working as prescription antibiotics. Okay. Now I said 85 to 90%. That means they don't work 10 to 15% of the time. Okay. But on the whole, I found that they have as good of a chance of helping as prescription antibiotics. Okay. So in terms of what to use, those are my two faves. Okay. The other one that I added in about a year ago in my practice, before I came down here, was to use Biocidin, a product called Biocidin LSF. And Biocidin, the individual components of Biocidin work in numerous ways to support getting rid of biofilms and to support killing of Lyme germs. Okay. And what I have found in my practice is that seems to work about 80, 85% of the time as well, too. My preference still is the cat's claw and Otoba bark tinctures. Okay. All right. So that's that. In terms of Babesia, if you're looking for, I'll answer your question two ways, because you didn't say whether you want the best treatment-resistant Babesia or you want the best herbal treatment for treatment-resistant Babesia. Okay. If you're wanting an herbal plan to get rid of treatment-resistant Babesia, I'd probably use a combination of the Cryptolepis as a pure product, not the Crypto Plus by Research Nutritionals, but rather the Cryptolepis product by Wildcraft Herbs, for instance. Okay. 5 milliliters 3 times a day. And I would combine that with artemisinin. Artemisinin is a Chinese herb that has been used successfully to treat malaria. I know that some herbalists like Buhner, the herbalist Buhner, does not like using it for Babesia anymore because he has found a lot of resistance. And that's true. I think if you use it continuously, there is a problem. But what I started doing in my practice was to use the way that they have found it effective in treating malaria, which is you use it high doses for 3 days and then you're off for 11 days. Okay. And what happens is, one of the things that can happen is if you use it continuously, the liver learns to metabolize it. And so you can't maintain good levels of it. And it is possible, we know in malaria has a way of developing partial resistance. It changes germ forms and develops partial resistance quickly. It's possible that same kind of situation might happen with Babesia, although we don't know for sure. But in using 3 days of a high dose on and then 11 days off, I have found it to work well. All right. So I have a different opinion than what Buhner does. I know Buhner doesn't recommend it anymore, but I found it to work quite well. And so the way that I use it as high dose is I will start a person at 100 milligrams 3 times a day. 100 milligrams. And I would start at 2 pills or 3 pills 3 times a day. And then they would be off for 11 days. Now, if sometimes there can be a killing reaction of sorts in treating Babesia, and you can get increased air hunger, you can get sweats, and you can get really fatigued. And that can occur anywhere from the first day you started up to about the 5th day after you started your first pill. Okay. Even though you take it for 3 days, even on day 4 and 5, you can get clobbered. All right. So if a person tolerates that 3 pills 3 times a day, after the first month, then I'll have them go up to 4 pills 3 times a day, 3 days on, 11 days off. And then after another 2 weeks, so every 2 weeks you would redose. All right. So first you would start at 3 pills 3 times a day. Then if you tolerate that, then the next time you dose, you go up to 4 pills 3 times a day, 3 days on, 11 days off. And then at the next 2 week interval, you would go up to 5 pills 3 times a day for 3 days on, 11 days off. Okay, that's what I did in my practice. And I found that to work quite effective. And you could combine both the Cryptolepis, 5 milliliters 3 times a day, along with the artemisinin. Okay, now, what I have just said, those two, dosing of both of those herbs, you'll find in my article called Kills Babesia, a Brief Guide. I did not mention putting them both together in that article, but when I was towards the end of my practice up in Washington, that is what I was starting to do and found it to be an effective combination. Okay. All right. If you're looking at prescriptions that are good for a treatment-resistant Babesia, you might look at a combination of like a Malarone coupled with a tetracycline, coupled with a cryptolepis. I often found that to be effective. And I think I mentioned a number of other ones in my Babesia treatment article as well too. All right. I hope that answers your question, Lisa. And thank you for your question. Good luck to you. Hello, Marge. Hi, Marty and all. Would all happen to be my Basenjis by any chance, of which only one is hanging out with me here tonight. The other one, I think, is in his kennel somewhere in the back there. Let's see here. As many of you know, I have 2 Basenji dogs that hang with me here, and you can't see them tonight. They're not within eyeshot range here. Let's see. I had Lyme, and they said Babesia took antibiotics for Lyme. The no more, should I be doing something for Babesia? How do I really know I have Babesia? I have shingles at the same time. Thanks for your book and conversations. All right. So in terms of how do you figure out if you have Babesia, testing is not that reliable. We estimate there's about 15 to 20 strains of Babesia, and we can only test for 2. So generally, you got to make a decision based on what your symptoms tell you. Okay. And symptoms that are highly suggestive of Babesia include drenching night sweats, anxiety attacks, headaches in the front of the head, air hunger, which means a feeling like you just cannot get enough air from time to time. Sometimes having little red cherry spots under the skin, that's kind of rash you can get with it. And then an interesting symptom, sometimes people with Babesia get a lot of deja vu experiences, okay? All right, now I showed you earlier tonight the article that you can look at about symptoms of Babesia and of Bartonella. Take a look at that. That's where I list out all of those symptoms, okay? All right. So that's how you would go about diagnosing. If you have a number of those symptoms, I would consider treating. Let me see, what was the second part to your question? So, I don't understand the first part of your question. It was a little bit broken up there in terms of what you said. If you did not, so Babesia usually will require at least 4 to 5 months of treatments to eradicate. Okay. If you look back at your treatment and you think you have Babesia, but you were not on 4 to 5 months of treatment, there's a good chance you didn't get rid of it. And if you're still having a lot of symptoms of Babesia, in that kind of a situation, what I have done in the past in my practice up in Seattle was to treat. Okay. All right. And again, an average length of treatment is 4 to 5 months. Okay. Good luck to you, Marge. Thanks for that question. Hello, Jenny. Hi, thanks for your help. You're welcome. I've had an increase in non-migrating joint and tendon pain since it has become cold. I would like to know if this is a pain due to the weather and damaged joints or a continuation of active Lyme in my body. I was treated with Doxy 200 twice a day for 10 months, Flagyl 250 twice a day times 8 months, then Cemento and Banderol for a year. Thanks. So it's a good question. So part of the problem with Lyme is that sometimes you get injury that even remains even after the germs are gone. So in situations like this, what I found helpful is to look at to see, are there any other symptoms suggesting that Lyme has gotten active? Usually it's not going to be just one symptom returning. You'll start noticing, for instance, that in addition to joint pains, that you might have thinking is starting to get worse, for instance, okay? You might notice that fatigue is starting to set in. You might notice that insomnia is starting to develop again. Anyhow, all the symptoms that one might attribute to Lyme start coming back. So usually if Lyme is active, it is not going to be just a type of symptom in isolation. There will be other symptoms that are suggestive of Lyme getting active as well too. So I can't say. I would need to ask you a lot more questions to kind of tease out, is there anything else that looks like Lyme here? Determine, is this just due to weather changes and injury, or is this because Lyme is getting active in you again? Okay. All right. The other thing I'd caution you about too is sometimes when it looks like Lyme is starting to get active, one of the things that it can actually be is something that looks like Lyme. All right. And one of the biggest things that can look like Lyme is getting too many yeast growing in your intestines. And the issue there is And how that relates to this is, remember, when somebody has Lyme disease, the reason that they have symptoms is that their immune system reacts to the germ and creates a bunch of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. All right. And cytokines are good and bad. On the good side, they help. They cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw those white blood cells where the infection is, and they help those white blood cells work better. All right, that's good. That's all good. But if the immune system has a hard time getting rid of Lyme, it tries harder and harder, and sometimes it makes too many cytokines. All right, and too many cytokines basically give you your Lyme symptoms. They make it so you can't sleep. They interfere with correct hormonal function. They can lead through something called leptin dysregulation to weight gain. They can give you fatigue. They can make it so you can't think. They can make you hurt all over, et cetera, et cetera. Lyme symptoms are excess cytokine symptoms. All right. So it is possible, if you've got something else in you triggering excess cytokines, that it can look a lot like Lyme is coming back. And the most common thing that it can be is too many yeast in your intestines, because after you're done treating Lyme with antibiotics, you are a setup, because you were on those antibiotics, even if you were on probiotics, you are a setup to get too many yeast growing there again. All right. So in my practice, what I found when people had symptoms that started to look like relapse, about 80% of the time, if I would just treat for yeast, if they had anything that suggested too many yeast in the intestines, if I treated for yeast, that often would take care of the problem. Okay. All right. So what symptoms look like yeast? Well, that can be increased sugar cravings, gassiness and bloating, vaginal itching, vaginal discharge in a woman. Sometimes food getting caught in your throat, because if you get yeast growing in your food pipe, that'll cause things to catch, so it becomes difficult to swallow. Those are things that can look like yeast. And also, too many yeast in the intestines release toxins that interact with your skin. They get into the bloodstream and interact with your skin. You can get rashes and pimples and acne sometimes too. So if suddenly you've got acne showing up after not having it since your teen years, think yeast, okay? All right. So I hope that gives you some ideas to look at. Let me just do a quick screen share here. I'll show you some resources you can look at too. All right. So this is back at Treat Lyme. So if you're wondering, where can I look at this? So take a look at the yeast chapter. And here's my article about how to get rid of yeast. Here's an article about how do you diagnose if it is yeast, okay? All right, and then there is an article, I want to take a look at this article too. It's called Steps to Fix a Lyme Treatment Crash. This basically goes over what do you do if you're starting to do worse after doing better, which is kind of what I was just describing to you too, okay? All right. Go back here. All right, Jenny. Good luck to you, and thank you for that question tonight. Hello, Pamela C. Hope you're happily settling into your new home, and thanks for this webinar. I am settling in. There's only, I think, 10 boxes to go. And the trouble is, I'm down to the boxes, and I just don't know what the heck to do with the stuff, basically. So we'll start getting through that. And I've got a few more pictures to hang. So, but thank you. It is happening, actually. See, are you aware of any medical challenge that involves a low SED rate below 5 and a high CRP? No, I'm not. I will tell you, both of these, SED rate and something called C-reactive protein, or CRP, are both inflammatory markers or inflammatory indicators. They often will be elevated in inflammatory arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus arthritis, those kind of arthritises. Interesting, though, you would think that with all the arthritis that people get in Lyme, they would be elevated regularly too. They're not. Often they're not, and very often they're not. And that is, again, because Lyme is due to inflammation from a different set of chemicals. It's those cytokines, okay? So it's not usually going to show up as a high SED rate or a C-reactive protein. But I'm not aware of anything that gives this kind of combination that you just described. All right. Thanks for that question, Pamela. Hello, Leslie. Let's see. Hello. I suffered a neck injury 2 years ago and am now bedbound due to pain, not fatigue. Um, Doctors believe either Epstein-Barr virus or Lyme were activated. I have Epstein-Barr virus titers greater than 600 IgG. My Western blot shows positive for 23 IgM and 41 IgG. How do I know which is primary? I keep getting conflicting opinions. Please help. This is a tough one. So first of all, the Western blot pattern you described is not positive. It's not solidly negative either, but it's kind of in between. All right. So the IgM and IgG you mentioned, those are two families of antibodies. IgMs are what you develop when you first get an infection. Eventually, they are supposed to go away and get replaced by IgGs. Now, that is what's supposed to happen. Okay. In Lyme disease, for some reason, about 80% of the time that somebody has Lyme, IgMs don't go away. Even though they're supposed to, they don't. And that confuses a lot of doctors, but that is the pattern of what happens. And we got many theories why that happens, but that is what happens, okay? Now, a test for IgM being positive is different. Let's see. When you interpret your IgMs and your IgGs, you have to look at each independent, all right? So on a Western blot, an IgM Western blot is positive if there are antibodies on the IgM test against two of the following 6 bands or 6 proteins. They are 2325 is one of those, okay? 31, 34, 39, 41, and the one called 8393, all right? If you have antibodies against 2 of those 6 on the IgM, that would be positive. Likewise, on the IgG, if you have antibodies against 2 of those 6 on the IgG, that's positive, okay? But you didn't have antibodies against either 1, 2 on either one of your IgM or IgG tests. So it's not clear to me that it is Lyme or not. All right. To consider if it is Lyme, often if Lyme is activated, it is not going to give you just one group of symptoms like nerve pain. Okay. Rather, it's going to give you other symptoms like difficulty thinking, insomnia, fatigue, joint and muscle pain. It's rare that you're going to have one symptom occur in isolation. All right. I would also say the same thing with Epstein-Barr. If Epstein-Barr is activated and active, it's not going to often give you just fatigue, nerve pain. It's going to give you fatigue and all the symptoms we see with chronic fatigue. Okay. So if I was treating you based on what you've just said here, I don't think I'd be covering you for Lyme or for Epstein-Barr. I don't think you have enough evidence to me to say it. I will tell you, though, I'm not getting the benefit of asking a bunch of questions to figure out if there's enough symptoms to suggest that they're active, though, too. Okay? All right. So that's just my opinion. But again, I have to admit, it's a little limited because I'm not getting to ask you a bunch of extensive questions. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Leslie. Hello, Kelly, and thank you for taking the time to do this. You're welcome. See, my questions are, what Lyme and co-infection tests should be ordered if I'm going through Armin labs? I would be looking for a chronic infection. Is the tick-plex testing necessary? I'm not sure what test this is from Armin. Can Lyme or Bartonella cause sinus problems, facial pain, or TMJ? And 3, is there any point to treating a long-term infection that shows up in IgG phase? All right, let's go through these one at a time. Number 1, what Lyme and co-infection tests should be ordered if I'm going through Armin labs? So when I think, although Armin has this newer lab called a tick-plex, I don't think there's enough data yet to show that it's a useful test. All right. The most useful test in terms of figuring out if you have Lyme from Armin labs is the ELISpot test. Okay, that is ELISpot for Lyme. Don't do his immunoblot, which is actually a Western blot. Just get the ELISpot test for Lyme. That is accurate at finding Lyme about 85% of the time. Okay. You could also do his ELISpot testing for Bartonella and for Babesia to see if you have those. But I think of all the tests that he does, the forms of the tests, it's the ELISpots that are accurate. The other ones I don't find to be as accurate. And the TickPlex that he's offering, I don't think we have enough active information yet as to whether it's a reliable test or not. Okay, number one. Okay, number two, can Lyme or Bartonella cause sinus problems, facial pain, or TMJ? I have seen, now I'm not saying this is universal, but I have seen Bartonella lead to pain that's like TMJ, meaning that facial kind of sinus pain that you're describing. Now, I don't think it's a uniform symptom that people have. And in this one patient, I am convinced it was from Bartonella, but I would not say it's a universal thing. Okay. All right. Number three, is there any point to treating a long-term infection that shows up in the IgG phase? Does that mean it's no longer active and not causing symptoms, or that the damage is already done and cannot be reversed? Okay, so as I was just mentioning, I think in the last question, there's two families of antibodies you get whenever you get an infection. There's IgMs and IgGs, all right? So IgMs always indicate an active infection, and that is because they are the acute antibody, meaning they occur during an acute active infection, all right? And in Lyme, about 80% of the time, they don't go away. The reason we don't think they go away, there's a theory for it. And that is what any germ membrane is made up of is a double layer of fat, okay? And in that germ membrane are a bunch of different kinds of proteins. Some that weigh 23 kilodaltons, some that weigh 41 kilodaltons, meaning band 41, band 23. You see where those come from? All right, so we identify these proteins by what they weigh. And these proteins in the covering of a Lyme germ can bury themselves in the fat and pop back out. And they do so randomly compared to their neighbor, for instance, okay? So what the germ covering looks like in Lyme is always changing. It always is looking, we think, brand new to the immune system. So guess what the immune system does? It keeps making the new IgM antibodies, okay? That's the theory, all right? We know that this epitope switching, these proteins flipping around as I described, that does happen. We have laboratory evidence of that. But then we theorize that because of that could explain why 80% of the time that somebody has Lyme, they keep making IgMs. And when you get IgMs, it means active infection then, okay? Now, about IgGs. So IgGs will develop, when they do develop in Lyme, and basically in all other infections, they do develop. When IgGs develop, they basically occur after the initial acute phase of an infection. And when they occur, they serve as the memory of the immune system, okay? So they will be present whether you have an active infection in you or not. In other words, you could have IgGs there and the immune system did not do a good job of getting rid of the germ, but it's going to keep making the IgGs, all right? Or it's making IgGs and the immune system, along with those IgG antibodies, did a good job of getting rid of the germ. So having IgGs does not tell you whether the germ is still active or not, but it could be. All right. And to figure that out, you just got to look at what your symptoms tell you. Yeah. All right. There you go. That answer. I hope that answers your question, Kelly. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Amy. I wonder if someone can get over mold symptoms if they're living in a house that has some mold. It seems that remediation is not always effective and getting rid of all possessions is not always possible. Does taking binders work with some exposure to mold? All right. So mold can cause two problems. Okay. Number one, some people develop allergies, and so they'll have allergic reaction. Okay. And if they are able to remove themselves from a mold environment, the allergies should go away. The allergic reaction aspect should go away. All right. The other thing that can happen, though, is that 25% that molds, different kinds of molds, can release mold toxins, and we breathe them in. Now, for 75% of people, that's no problem because our immune systems work well at destroying those mold toxins that we breathe in, and we never have a problem again. But based on the work of Dr. Richie Shoemaker, Shoemaker has shown that 25% of people, when exposed to mold toxins, their immune system does not correctly tag those mold toxins. And what happens is those mold toxins get absorbed into our bloodstream. They don't get broken down by the immune system, and they get trapped in us. They go to the liver as a fat-based toxin. The liver is supposed to transform them into a water-based toxin. And as a water-based toxin, they get moved out into the intestines. They're supposed to mix in our poop. We're supposed to poop them out. but that doesn't happen when they're not tagged and broken down correctly, okay? So they go to the liver as a fat-based mold toxin, they come out as a fat-based mold toxin, go out into the intestines, and they get reabsorbed again back into the bloodstream. So you just get this recirculating swimming pool, okay? So 25% of people, basically, even if you remove them from a mold environment, are going to still remain ill unless you bind up all those mold toxins and pull them out, okay? So let's see here. So either for allergies, if you cannot get rid of all your possessions and get out of a place that has mold, you're going to still be reacting. And if you are a mold toxin illness problem, you're going to probably still have the same problem too. The best you can do if you are a mold exposure, mold toxin problem is try to limit your exposures. And if you are having to be exposed, I usually have people stay on binders over a period of time to deal with all the toxins that come in at them, basically, okay? So to the last part of your question, does taking binders work with some exposure to mold? Yeah, they can, all right? Let me just show you an article that you can look at to see what binders you might use depending on which mold toxins you're being exposed to, too, and for more information about this, too. So I'm going to do a quick screen share. All right. So this is Treat Lyme, okay? So take a look at my chapter called Detoxification. And take a look at this article called Mold Toxin Illness in Lyme Disease, okay? And here I talk about how do you figure out if you have mold toxin illness, and I talk about which binders do you use. But in people, even if I've treated them before for mold toxin illness and they get a lot better, if they're still regularly being exposed to mold toxins, I just have them stay on some degree of binders over time to keep binding what's coming at them from the environment, okay? All right. All right, Amy, thank you for that question. Hello, Sarah. Hi, Dr. Ross. My name is Rebecca. Oh, it says Sarah here on the top. I'm not sure why. Anyhow, hi, Rebecca. I was diagnosed with Lyme in March 2018. After 2 months of IV detox, I started doxycycline 100 milligrams twice a day, but I still have a lot of pain in my arms, my back, and my spine. My neck and brain MRI came out good. Doctor tested me for brucellosis, and the blood test came out positive. So he put me on doxy 200 milligrams a day and rifampin 600 milligrams a day. I am taking these 2 antibiotics for 2 months, and in my blood test last week, the antibodies brucellosis was higher in my blood. Could it happen even if I am taking antibiotics for a long time, or do you think the antibiotics are not working? Do these antibiotics kill Lyme also? I am taking your protocol as well. I started the Questran for cholesterol, and I'm herxing a lot. Is this normal? Okay, so first of all, so the Questran is a form of cholestyramine, everyone. So it can be used to bind toxins, okay? And when you bind toxins, sometimes that triggers a flare in production of cytokines, all right? So could you feel worse from the Questran? Yeah, it might be triggering a cytokine excess, okay, or a cytokine reaction, all right? What you might want to do is decrease the amount you're taking until that passes. The other thing you can do is limit cytokine production, and that would be to use curcumin. I like using curcumin to limit cytokine excess that occurs in Herxheimer reactions or in doing mold detox. And I like using 500 milligrams 3 times a day. I prefer using a liposomal variety of curcumin to do that. And the product I like is a Thorne product called Mariva 500. Okay, all right, so that's one thing to consider. Okay. All right, now, the combination of doxycycline and rifampin is a full Lyme germ treatment too. All right, so the doxycycline treats intracellular and extracellular Lyme, also treats spirochete Lyme, okay? The rifampin treats the cyst form of Lyme and can treat intracellular Lyme as well too, all right? You got a full Lyme germ treatment. That is also a Bartonella treatment, and it is a brucellosis treatment, okay? Now, concerning the brucellosis, it could be that as you are killing germs, your immune system is able to react stronger and make more antibodies. So I don't find antibody level tracking is useful when you're killing germs. All right. And I've already discussed earlier tonight why I don't think it's even useful to measure antibodies after your initial Lyme testing, because I don't think they're reliable. All right. All right. Let's see here. I think I answered your questions there. Good luck to you. And Rebecca, yeah. And thank you for that question. Hello, Lulu. Let's say hello, Dr. Ross. Thank you for your work. You're welcome. I removed a tick from my head after 24 hours. This was in the mid-70s, had a rash and became severely ill for months. No one was talking about Lyme in those days. By the time I saw a good doc, he said maybe it had been Rocky Mountain spotted fever, but the acute phase was over, so no diagnosis was over. I have episodes of severe fatigue, brain fog. A few years ago, I was tested. No Lyme antibodies were found, but was found to have the least severe version of MTHFR and take Methylguard Plus for this. Do you have any suggestions, since probably I will never know what's happening? Ever heard of oregano oil? Anything rifing? Thank you. And I love your sweet doggies, Lulu. I like my doggies too. My doggies are actually having a good time here in Texas. Remember, my dogs are Basenjis, right? So Basenjis are African dogs. They love the African plains, meaning they love heat and sunshine. It's funny. I actually have a yard here on my home. I didn't in Seattle. I lived in an apartment, but I have a yard. And I found them laying the other day in 80 degrees out on the white cement of the driveway, just laid out, just taking in the sun and loving it. So my Basenjis are happy here. So yeah, thought I would share that with you. Anyhow, so I am concerned that you might still have Lyme. All right. And even though the Western blot testing was done, I think that's what you mean. Well, you said no Lyme antibodies were found. So I want to caution you about that. So typically when doctors do initial screening to see if you have Lyme, they're going to do a test called an ELISA test. An ELISA test asks the questions, do you have antibodies in you that could have been made against the Lyme germ? All right. It's a could test. It's not that good of a test. In fact, if you have Lyme, it will only come back positive 50% of the time. So if that's the test they did, it's like not even being tested. Okay, that's called an ELISA test. All right. The other way that you can measure antibodies is to do this Western blot we've been talking about, or the newer method that IGeneX has called an immunoblot. All right. The immunoblot way of measuring antibodies will find Lyme if you have it in you 91% of the time. So one thing you might want to consider is retesting for Lyme with a high quality lab through IGeneX. Unfortunately, it's going to run about $490, but it will find Lyme if you have it 91% of the time. The other option, if that is the type of test that was done before, and I doubt it though, but if it was, then you might consider doing the ELISpot test through Armin Labs that can find Lyme if you have it about 85% of the time. Okay. So from what you're telling me, I have concerns that you could have Lyme. I can't prove it by what you just said here, but it has me wanting to have you look a little bit further at that. Okay. All right. And then, yes, I have heard of oregano oil. I know a colleague of mine, Steve Phillips, out on the East Coast is looking at, I believe he's looking at research now to see if that's going to be an effective treatment for Lyme. It is, oregano oil is also in a compound that I have used successfully in the past to treat Lyme called Biocide and LSF. One of the major herbal components is oregano. So oregano could work. But if you're looking for an herbal option, probably my favorite herbal option is to use a combination of the Otoba bark and cat's claw that I mentioned earlier tonight too. Okay. And rifing works, maybe helps people about 40% of the time, but I have never seen anyone that has gotten over Lyme doing rifing. All right. I'll just let you know that. Okay. And so let me just show you a quick article. I'm going to do a screen share here. Okay, so if you're looking for information about how to kill Lyme, you can take again a look at the infection treatment plan. You can buy my book where I describe various ways of killing Lyme in the herbal or prescription options. But one of the things you can look at is just about the Otoba and the cat's claw. Look in this anti-germ RX and herbs chapter. Here's the article I have on Otoba bark extract and cat's claw. I talked to you about my experience using it, why I found it to be successful, okay, and how it probably works. And then this is the article about biocidin, which I mentioned a number of times tonight too. And this talks about what are the proposed ways that biocidin supports getting rid of Lyme, okay? All right, so those are two things for you to take a look at. All right. Thanks for that question, Lulu, and good luck to you. Hello, Jenny. Welcome to Texas, Dr. Ross. Thank you. I got to tell you, I've had a number of people reached out to me from the Texas Lyme community down here, people that I don't know, and have reached out to say hi, either through emails or I even had a physician down here today that gave me a call and said, hey, I understand you're down here. Let's go out. It's a person I didn't even know before, but I've really been touched by the way that people are reaching out. So thank you for that, Jenny. And thank you for anyone from the Texas community down here that has reached out to me. I really have been appreciating that. Thank you. Hello, Randy. Let's see. I had IV chelation twice a week for several months and felt better. My muscle weakness, fatigue, and hoarse voice and sore throat got better. I had to stop, went through my savings. Symptoms came back with a vengeance. I started Otoba bark and cat's claw by myherbs.net. What do you think? I guess I don't know what to think because I'm not sure what you're treating here. And I don't mean that in a cruel way. By the fact that you did IV chelation, I have to assume, and I may be assuming incorrectly, that somebody along the way tested to see if you have heavy metal toxicity. And if so, you need probably the first step that I would do in a situation like this is I would go back and retest to make sure the heavy metals are gone. Because it could be that you still have a lot of heavy metals in you that are causing the problem. I'm not sure from what you've said here, because I don't know anything about your symptoms, previous testing you've had done, etc., whether you have Lyme or don't have Lyme. I cannot tell. There's just not enough information here for me to be able to tell, all right? But if you are having Lyme, Otoba and cat's claw can be a very useful way of treating. I don't know this form of cat's claw as to whether it's a useful way, a useful product or not. But in theory, using Otoba and cat's claw can be helpful, okay? But to be clear, I would recommend making sure you got your heavy metals out all the way because it seems that treating them helped you. Maybe you didn't get them all the way out. All right, that's what I would suggest. Like if you're my patient and I was still treating, I hadn't moved to Texas yet, I was still up in Seattle. That is what I would probably wind up doing. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Randy. All right, everyone. That's it for me tonight. There's a lot more questions there. I'm just like, I can't get to all of them. We are scheduled for another webinar next week, but when I scheduled that, I didn't realize it was the day before Thanksgiving. I didn't pay attention. And so because of that, I am not going to be having that webinar next week. So I'm going to wind up probably canceling that. And in tomorrow's email, though, I will have a sign up for the next series of webinars, and those will begin in the last week of this month and go into December. And I'll try to avoid Christmas in my scheduling this time. So look at your emails tomorrow morning. There'll be a sign up for the next series of webinars. Again, I will be taking next week off just because it is the day before Thanksgiving. And then in the week, and so look for that. In the morning, look for the email that will have a sign up, as also will have information about how to access the recording for tonight's webinar. All right. I'm glad to see so many people here tonight. Thanks for all your good wishes too. I really do appreciate that. And hopefully one of these days again, Halo and Thor will come back out of hiding, my two Basenjis. But tonight, Halo is she's sound asleep over there. I'm not going to disturb her to show her to everyone tonight. So nice seeing everyone. Have a good evening and good luck, everyone. And for those of you that ask questions, thank you for asking those as well too. And good luck, everyone.